Roshan, what are we achieving today and why should people listen to you?
So Sanghi, today we're going to deep dive on what it takes to build a business, especially in the AI era, from 0 to 1. We'll talk about how to, fix the idea, launch, MVP, get your first 100 customers and really scale and in a fun ways as well. I'm Roshan. I'm a two-time founder. Currently, I'm building Period AI, which is an AI product company for BFSI and the retail sector to help automate their sales. Previously, I had started another company called Combinator that became one of India's fastest growing account startups, backed by Combinator and some of the top most VC funds globally.
So let's say somebody is a beginner, somebody is a non-coder, they will understand how do we go from an idea stage, then how do we build like an MVP and then get the first users and then take it forward, right? Awesome. I think so. Let's start with the idea stage itself. If let's say a newbie wants, there are so many ideas, right? Every day as an aspiring entrepreneur you come across, right? But only 1% of those ideas actually succeed, right? That's the success rate. As a seasoned entrepreneur, right? What are few frameworks or what are the guidelines that like somebody should follow to actually at least increase their chances of success?
Absolutely.
To finalize that idea. Yeah.
That's a great question, Kshitiz. I'll give a personal snapshot as well, right? Maybe touch a bit about my own founding experience as a founder, of what I did as a first time entrepreneur, what was my mental model like when I started the first company. And now I was running my second company, what is my mental model like? And I can summarize then a step-by-step process for people to really understand that. So I'll give a first perspective. The first time I started my own company, I was in corporate for quite some time in Delhi. And then in 2020, that's before COVID hit, I quit my job in consulting in Deloitte and started my first company, Coca. But as a first-time entrepreneur, I was very, very unclear what to do, right? How do you select the right idea? How does it even make sense to you? Whether this idea is something that you should focus your time and energy on? And if it makes sense, how do you grow it, right? When I was probably 5 years back now, when we started the first company, I was taking a very personal first view. Is this problem impacting me or my family? So it was more of a personal experience-driven issue. So if you remember COVID, during COVID days, everyone was stuck at home because of lockdown and groceries, especially because I come from a small town, Guwahati, Assam, where tech companies are not as, probably in the desk, let's say Bangalore and Delhi. So there's a huge problem in getting groceries for myself and my family, right? And that was like a driving challenge, not just for me, I'm sure a lot of other entrepreneurs as well. So I was like, how do I ensure that I get a regular supply of groceries and home essentials to my family? And of course, my neighbors as well. And I was like, and I saw there was significant demand, right? But obviously the situation was very unique. So we just started a very, very small MVP. I started talking to users that, hey, if I have an online grocery delivery service focused on tier 2, tier 3 cities, would you buy that, right? And what kind of interface do you want? And all. So we talked to a lot of people and then essentially build the first version of the app. I had my co-founder, luckily in this case, who's a technical co-founder. But even if I was alone, the first thing I always do, which I did back in 2020 as first time, is talk to users first, right? Because sometimes our personal ideas might be slightly biased given our own personal experiences, and the market might want something different as well. So when we went to the market, we saw that what we had initially in mind was slightly different from what other users, our largest section of users wanted. So I think the first takeaway is talk to your users. You might have a foundation experience, a personal experience. You might also have a professional experience of working in a company X where you might have done some work. But when you really zone in your idea, it's very important to talk to users first. Just to give you another quick reference here, when I started my second company, I had a very clear mental model in place, right? So if I kind of really objectify that, first is, it has to be an idea that you personally connect to at some level or professionally connect to. So I give you an example where, this issue of grocery deliveries and COVID was personally impacting me. And that was a very practical thing that I really wanted to do as well. Other idea can be you have worked in a professional industry for some time, or maybe you are still in college. You have seen a lot of ideas online on LinkedIn or YouTube or others. Something excites you, right? So the first thing we need to do, the first time you don't come from technical background, is go and talk to users. First, what you can do is maybe talk to 5 to 10 friends in your own network or friends and family members just to get the unbiased view, right? Because what generally happens is people are generally encouraging, right, and they give you good feedback. It's also very important to be upfront and tell them, hey, give me very unbiased, open feedback so that I really understand what your pain points are and then kind of do something around that. Once you essentially focus on this, identify this key pain point, right? Second is start making a very basic MVP or a minimum viable product, as we call it in tech circles, right? So you don't have to get a team of tech experts together or a big tech team. It can just be you or maybe a couple of close friends who are passionate about this idea and build a very basic MVP out. And that is something that even YC taught us, we are both YC batchmates, in different batches. But the first thing is, once you identify users, build something very basic. Don't go for a very fancy product. I would put all the features together. I would serving every customer. we have a very narrow target customer. For us, in my previous e-commerce company, it was, let's say, a homemaker or a family in a tier 2 city that needs grocery delivery, which was not prevalent there. Currently, as I'm building my second AI company, I am very clear who my ICP is, and that takes some time also to understand. Then once you kind of build this out, now there's a lot of AI tools that are very easily available, where you don't actually have to code as well, right? So even though I'm a founder and I come from a computer science background, but I don't like coding at all, right? I'm more passionate about finance and sales and management in general. So if I had to do it like a solo founder, bootstrap it out initially, I will launch a very basic and I'll talk about what kind of tools you can use later on in the conversation. Then push out the first product as soon as possible, maybe ideally in less than 4 weeks. And once your product hits the market, you'll see some things work, some things need more improvement. And what is most important is take the user feedback very quickly and iterative and keep launching again and again. I think what I've seen, in fact, in my case as well, we always try for perfection. The first product has to be perfect. Everyone should be happy. But in retrospect, that is probably the worst advice I can get, right? I don't have to make a perfect product. I just want to make something that just works and makes certain customers really happy. And some people might not be happy as well. So you talk to both the chunk of customers after you launch, understand what is working well for them, and also talk to the other set of customers and understand what might not be working well for them, what do they need extra. Then you prioritize the next set of features. Let's say you do a very basic customer survey and you see what are the top 3 things people are asking from this initial version release, right? Then you iterate on that and keep launching again. So that is probably how I think about initially kind of, getting an idea. Now, second part is also very important, right? So, you also need to identify whether a person is going to pay for it as well. Right? Is it a deep enough problem where a user is happy to pay X dollars or X rupees for paying the problem? So otherwise, of course, we can start from a very passion project, build something out. But if you want this to be a viable business, if you want to generate cash flow, and of course, the reason why a business exists is that we serve customers very well and makes money for the business, right? So that is self-sustaining. So you need to now zone in and take a bit of a financial lens of sort. Is this a deep enough problem for my users? And will the user pay for the product as well? Right? That is how essentially I have a mental model. Identify the problem, identify the target customer, quickly release the MVP, build a product out, then understand whether the user will pay a certain dollar amount for that product, with keep those things.
Very interesting, very interesting. And I think this just reinforces everything that I have learned over time as well, right? How we started Whoosh, we have gone through multiple pivots, and again and again it comes back that why are we not talking to our customers, right? And I think that's a founder's fallacy. I think you can confirm that we know it, that we need to talk to the user sort of every day, but still we keep forgetting it over time, right? For some reason. And as and when we go back to the customer, we realize that, okay, what we are building, what are the things which they love, what are the things that they don't like, what are the things that they don't even know exist in our product or platform, right? And if we are able to constantly build what they want, there is no problem in terms of retention, no problem in terms of referral that they are doing to certain people other than themselves. And everything goes on very, very smoothly, right? Again, to reiterate, right, as even Sam Altman says, even Brian Chesky from Airbnb says, right, that you don't have to satisfy 10,000 people, right, who may just know about your product. Even if 100 people just love your product, that is a great validation of how your company would shape up over time, right? Even let's say Airbnb also started as a mattress, as a company which is giving, let's say, rooms to people where where there's no hotel rooms available, right? In a place where there's a massive conference happening. And from now, it has become such a big lifestyle company wherein we use it a lot. Awesome. So I think the idea part is pretty clear. But before we move forward, I want to understand from your perspective, what are the key startup ideas or business ideas, right, where you feel there is opportunity and somebody should build, right? So that would be like a gold mine for our viewers to just go and start researching about those particular ideas or industries in general.
Absolutely. I think before I talk about certain industries or use cases that really excite me as a founder beyond what I'm doing currently, I think the first thing you need to understand is when you're essentially deciding your target customer or target market. Let's take the example of, say, in the real estate market, right? Sales, for example. Now you need to understand what is the current problem and is it a boring or a repetitive problem, especially with AI, right? Because AI does a great job in automating as of now, as we speak now, until of course the AGI comes in. So the lower chunk of the repetitive work can be automated very well using AI, whether it's telecalling, whether it's invoice scanning, whether it's maybe compiling summary reports from data. So we need to understand what the most repetitive manual tasks which can be automated. That can be one use case. But having said that, two, three domains that really excite me. Number one is how can AI essentially help with sales and revenue generation? So when I was doing my own, due diligence while building the second company, I used to go and ask a lot of business leaders or potential customers that if I give you an AI solution, what do you want the AI to help your business with? Ultimately, AI I feel is an enabler, right? Of course, there's a lot of buzz with AI, but at the core of it, AI is the technology that helps you do your business better, whether it's automating something or just taking it to the next level. So what I've seen is people are most excited by if I deploy AI in my company, assuming it's a P2P use case, does it improve revenue or productivity? So at least that's what I've seen, especially Indian customers. If it improves my top line or revenue, they're most excited. So now you can essentially look at how can AI automate maybe my sales processes, doing background research of the potential customers I will talk about, whether it's voice calls, can you automate voice calls to WhatsApp? And so how can I improve sales and revenue, especially for Indian SMEs or SMBs, right? That's a huge untapped market. Can I help the Indian SMB sector using AI tools to improve the productivity of revenue across use cases? That's one. Secondly, I also feel edtech as a sector is going to disrupt it significantly by AI. In fact, I was in a recent, Google event where they were showcasing how not just Google's products, but I think in general, a lot of AI tools have become so personalized and so accurate you don't even feel a need to actually go to a physical, tuition center or a school, right? Because the kind of personalized attention that you're doing. So I think AI and edtech can also be a great tools, at scale, whether it's as simple as building an AI English app for non-English speaking users in India or Southeast Asia or globally, but just around education in general. That's like number two. Number three can also be, the creator economy is growing very fast, right? Especially in India, if you're taking India as a target market, or even globally. Can I build AI tools for creators to improve their, productivity, processes, and release content faster? Fourth, also, which personally impacts me, is can I build SEO tools or marketing tools that help me market my business better? That's also one big opportunity again for SMBs as well, because they don't have a lot of tools at their disposal. Either they're not aware of, they don't have the capacity to pay large companies to automate this SEO or marketing. So if you have a good enough ticket size or pricing, which is affordable to a large segment of users, we can actually spin out AI SEO tools to improve the website or your visibility on Google or other platforms, also improve their other processes. That's the 3, 4 areas that really kind of excite me. How can AI help in sales for Indian SMBs? How can AI help in edtech or learning? SEO and NP. That's 3, 4 areas where I see. But of course, there's a bunch of use cases. And as I mentioned in the first part of the conversation, is it's always best if it is driven by a personal experience or a professional experience you've seen in your own life. Then you can go very deep and build something with brilliant now.
Now, as we go to the next stage, which is building an MVP, you also covered that why building like a scrappy product is very, very important. But as a newbie, as a non-coder, right, I think the biggest scare of our target audience is that I don't know how to code, right? So can you tell like a step-by-step process, right, which let's say a non-coder who's scared of coding can just implement at certain level? Obviously, a lot of figuring out has to happen, but still like a bigger framework that they can follow.
I'll try to start with a bit of a twist to this, right, Kshitiz? I'll tell you what we did wrong in a previous company by developing MVP, and I'll tell you what I would do now as an experienced founder. So again, the first company probably around late 2020, we started, trying to hire a bunch of engineers before even knew what to really code, right? So thankfully, my co-founder is a great engineer, great co-founder. But we started saying, hey, can I hire 2, 3 more engineers and maybe ship something very correct? But what we did not zone in is, do I even need this engineering team from day zero? And now in retrospect, in the era of AI, you don't need that. You can be a solo founder and don't have the technical depth, but you can easily build an MVP from scratch. And that is the way about it. In fact, one thing I learned as a second-time founder is, first-time founder, and this is probably a bit of a cliche as well, but first-time founders obsess about product, second-time founders obsess about distribution or sales, right? Because they know that if there is sales coming in, you'll anyway make the product the way it is defined to you. Right? That is probably one defining thing, especially for like young professionals, young aspiring founders who might be watching this podcast today. It is very important that you don't obsess about, do I have the tech team? Do I know how to code? Because now you don't exactly need to be an expert in coding. AI does more than a better job and prove that. I'll give you some glimpses of how you do it. So assume you have talked to your users, you know exactly what you're trying to build. First thing you need to do is make a very basic, what we call in our tech circles, is a PRD, a product requirements document.
Yeah.
And I'll simplify that for you, right? Basically, you write down, if I'm making an e-commerce app, for example, I'll say, what are the most basic functionalities I'd put on the app? And then I can prioritize that. There are certain advanced features that can come to second release, right? In the first release, if I was a first-time non-technical founder, I'll say, I need the a very basic, let's say an Android app or a website where I can list different items, let's say grocery or Apple. So one listing feature is there, and the customer can log in, do a basic verification, add items to the cart, and check out and pay by certain mode. Right? That's probably the most skeletal way of kind of defining. As a seller, or as a company, can I list products on the platform? And as a customer, can I log in, add items to the cart and check out? I don't need to have advanced features of RTO check and PGs and all that. Right? That is like the way I think about it. Now, going back to the problem, right, in terms of how do I kind of build an entity without coding knowledge. Now, I think what really excites me also as a founder, now there are tools that, which we call as low code or natural language enabled, coding tools where you can just type in your normal natural language and AI creates the basic app on the website for you. So one of the tools that I really love, or I hear a lot of people in my network talk about is Lovable. Lovable is a Swedish company, which is a very low code AI platform where non-technical users can use the product, type in normal language text of what they are really expecting. They can also give references of similar websites. AI would create the basic entire website or app from scratch, right?
Yeah.
And thankfully, there are some integrations where you don't even have to go to an AWS or GCP or other cloud providers, and you can build the basic app. You might need some extra tech support to make it ready, market ready. But the first version, the scrappy versions with it, can be done on tools like Lovable, to an extent Replit and Bolt as well. For example, in our company, we use a lot of Bolt just to kind of automate a lot of the front end website development rather than using a bunch of engineers. But if there is one takeaway for founders here, and this is that don't kind of obsess about coding engineering. Go to use something called as as we call like a vibe coding tool, right? Where you can use natural language, just typing what you want and AI creates. That's a Lovable is one. Replicate is another one. Third would be a Bolt as well, which can make great tech products, which you can start using if you use it early. It might not be perfect, but it just gets the job done. Agreed. Enough to launch everything.
Agreed. And even I have played around, right? I'm a commerce grad, though I do lead the tech team at Whoosh, but that is all self-learned, right? But when I tried Lovable, Bolt, and Replit, right, I was like blown away. The kind of products I was able to build just by simple prompts, and then you keep re-prompting it, you keep telling it, okay, what do you want? It's just like let's say me as a product manager talking to my engineers, right? It's the same thing, right? And it's much easier because it happens so quickly that it is extremely fascinating. And I think people have not tried it out yet, but anyone, it's free to try, right? Obviously, there's a small cost later on if you want to genuinely launch. It's not more than $20, but at a free level, it is a very beautiful to actually build something.
And think about this, glad that you mentioned the pricing as well. So at just a nominal cost of maybe $25 a month, so roughly around 2,000 rupees a month, you can build like significant value-adding MVPs. Right? So rather than obsessing about this $2,000, think about the possibilities of what this $2,000 can do. Right? You don't even need the team. You don't even need to pay anyone. Just build something and quickly launch. So the speed of launching is now super fast, right? Probably compared to 5 years back.
I just want to add one thing here, right? That anyone, right, who's still afraid, even after trying, right, all these tools, which I'm sure once they try it, they'll be very happy. But in case they are very, let's say, scared of that, right, just start something as a service, right, to validate the demand, right? Because a service, you can do it manually, right? But what matters is the outcome. Right? Your product was solving for an outcome and you are unable to build that product because you don't have the expertise or you are scared of coding. Ideally, just start it as a service, do it manually, understand your user, validate the demand, and most importantly, Roshan, as you said, right, is your user willing to pay you that money for that particular outcome or not, right? Very, very important, right? I think we have all made that mistake as founders, right? That we are building something which people don't want to pay for, even though they want to have it, but they don't want to pay it for. Right? So
especially I think Asia in general is a tough market, right? India and Southeast Asia, where the propensity to pay is sometimes very limited by business users or like B2C users. That's very important.
Yeah. So let's say anyone who's building an MVP, just try out Lovable, Bolt, Replit. If you are still scared, unable to do it, you launch it as a service, do it manually, figure out the market, put on all the checklists that Roshan discussed in the first half, right? And I think you'll be good to go.
And this is bio. I just want to give probably just add to this. So from my own experience building the second AI company, which we call as Media AI now. So what we do, and just to give you a glimpse to our users, is we automate sales customer service using AI for companies, mostly in the banking and financial sector and retail sector. But when we did the basic MVP, and as a second time founder, I actually told my co-founder, let's not launch an app right away. Let's get 1 to very early customers and let's actually do manual sales calls just to understand what the other person on the other line is seeing, right? Because and sit with the sales teams also of my potential clients. And that is also advice I actually learned online from some, I think, YC community, I think on Bookface probably, yes, where they were talking about, and that really struck me, is that before you actually write a single line of code, go and sit with the client team if possible, or the customer team, assuming it's a B2B company you are serving as a service, and understand how are they actually making the sales calls. For example, let's say you are trying to serve a real estate company which is doing sales of residential real estate for apartments and houses. So there's a bunch of telecallers or telemarketing teams that are calling customers, right, or maybe sending SMS. So the first thing you do is, if you write a line of code, try and arrange a situation where you can go and sit with them for a couple of hours and just see what their typical days like, what are the problems like. Because what I've seen is a lot of times people don't really communicate what is the most core problem that is impacting them. They might talk here and there, but it takes a certain skill to figure out what is the most pressing problem to them. So best way is probably go and sit with them for a couple of hours in a week, or maybe as much as you can, and understand what the customer is doing currently, what are the pain points. Secondly, if possible, what I did was I actually made those sales calls to the end customer on behalf of my B2B customer. And I understood what are the objections the end customer is doing if I'm doing a sales call. What are the problems? Is he or she not available on the call? Are there network issues? Are they asking questions which, we're not prepared about? There, once I got that overall personal first view of what my direct customer and the end customer wants, then I started actually writing code for the software. That is super important. That's very easy also, right? As a non-tech guy, I'm sure we have enough people in network who let you sit with their teams or the end customer and just do that from scratch.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think that's a very, very short way, man. We have all tried this out. We have all first started by not going very deep with the user, right? And building it, then regretting it, and then understanding why user is most important, and then doing what you just told us, right? So I think, Roshan, this is a gold mine. And for everyone who's watching this, it's very important to go very deep and understand for themselves, right? That what works for them, and talk to the user, right? Again, but as an opportunity, it's amazing. Now we want to understand that, okay, we have understood, okay, how to figure out an idea, what are the key industries where there are good ideas or there is opportunity. We have understood how to build an MVP, right? Now, how do we get the first set of users, right? How do we sort of start to monetize it? How do we reach out to the users properly so that they give us the right importance that our product or our problem deserves? Because that is again a big pain point for every new founder, because they don't have any connects, they don't know how to reach out, they have zero clue about this.
Absolutely. So if I answer the question correctly, Kshitiz, what you're asking is once I launch my MVP, how do I get my first real set of users, and how do I scale the business? Essentially what you're asking, especially if you are a first-time founder, you do not use networks. I think I can relate to this very personal level as well. So I come from Guwahati, as I mentioned, small town in the eastern part of the country. And I don't come from a family that has done business at all. Like most of the families are either in government jobs or in the legal professions. Business for me was very, very moving. So when I started also, I had those big question marks. How do I reach out to my network and build on that? Or how do I get my first set of users? So I'll divide this in two parts. Let's talk about how do you get the first set of users, right? Then we can talk about how do you keep going or keep scaling from there. I think the first 10 users, at least in my case, come from my native friend circle or college circle or professional circles. Right? So I done my engineering from IIT, then MBA from IIM, and then worked in the corporate industry for some time. So what I did was, when I launched the first company, the first set of people that I reached out were my very close friends from my engineering and business schools, and my ex-colleagues in the previous organizations. But then also my family members as well. Maybe I made like a group cohort of 15, 20 users and said, hey, I'm building this. I need your feedback. Why didn't you start using this? I'm going to give you some cash back or some gift. Make the order. Let's say in this case, it was e-commerce app, right? So make the order, transact, 10 minutes experience end to end, right from ordering to getting the item on your doorstep. In this case, it was a grocery delivery, and then whatever other issues you face. Right? So I actually had them as a model initial customers, and I told them, if you share about this app to your friends, I'm going to give you, let's say, 200 rupees cash back or something like that. So there was some intent also for them to really share that with their friends, and also give very unbiased feedback. And I was very clear, don't just give me good, happy feedback just because you're my friends. It is very important for me that you give me the most brutally honest feedback. And this is a culture I've set in my teams as well. I don't want feedback just to kind of flatter someone and just, being happy. It is very important for our organization, like when as a founder, to get brutally honest feedback, which really impacts your business, right? So in this case, my friends tried the app out, gave me some feedback, which I improved on. And then I told them, why don't you now start sharing about this app to your friends and family? Like, and why do you start transacting? I'm going to give you some cash back. Now, if I take the second company which I'm building out, which is more B2B AI use case. So I reached out, and in this case, I was a bit fortunate. I was already a YC founder. I could reach out to the YC network when people are super helpful. So I reached out to my YC network directly, some of my previous investors, and I talked to founders, business leaders, try to understand what they really want, And I signed them up as early customers, right, at a very low cost or almost at a complimentary basis for making them as anchor early customers. And once they were happy, once we could deliver some demonstrable value, they then signed up for full-time contracts and then started sharing the word of mouth to their other industry places. That's, I think, what happened in my case. But if I have to really kind of put it as a mental model, it will be like first go to your friends and family, get those early users, either they're a B2C user or whether they're a B2B user. Ask them who to feedback, incentivize them also to kind of use the app and share with their friends and family. And as you mentioned, you can easily get 20 to 30 customers from that day, right? The second phase is once you get your first 30, how do you get your next first 100, right? So the next 70 comes from their references. Either they tell their friends or they are sharing. And one of the things that I, as a founder, I'm very bullish about is building organic virality in the app, right? So if you share this with your friend, you cooking both ways, and people have an intensity to share and get some benefit back. But that's how we build those first set of users. Focus on your immediate direct networks, ask favors to your friends, and be absolutely shameless. Like don't be embarrassed to ask favors. But people understand that people are supportive, want to encourage youngsters, right, to really build something up. And in this case, I was very, very fortunate. A lot of people from my network and even people I did not know as well through LinkedIn actually came and gave me feedback and helped me grow the business up. And I'm obviously very, very grateful to them, all of them, and they know who they are. But it's not as tough as people think, right? Just get this first 30 users from your initial network. The rest, 100 and 1,000 will follow. And as you mentioned, I think as YC says that, and I think Brian Chase came this case from Airbnb, just get the first 100 users that really love and obsess over your product. And the rest, 1,000, 10,000 will follow.
I think very, very relatable. And I think the core insight here is that you have to be shameless, right? And you have to go all in and you have to like sell left, right, and center because it's your own baby, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive difference between how India operates or how a Silicon Valley operates, right? That in India, failure is not yet accepted that well, right? Whereas in if like both of us have been to the YC events in SF, right? And there we have understood that failure is celebrated because that helps you grow, that helps you take the risk that people are stopping, right? That's why all the innovation happens in Silicon Valley and not in India, right? And I think that's a big difference. When I'm in SF, everyone is shamelessly asking for help, shamelessly just going and pitching their products and telling very passionately about their services, right? But in India, I think there is a certain
I
social
think there's a
stigma.
certain gap there, but I think thankfully now India is also catching up really well. I think there's a lot of talent, but this
Correct.
culture of, I think, helping each other, I think shameless of that is, in terms of building the business and, being
Correct.
very upfront about it, is coming down.
It's coming up. It's coming up for sure, right? But let's say for an aspiring entrepreneur, right, who has not yet started. So I would say I was not shameless. Now I'm shameless after being an entrepreneur. For aspiring entrepreneurs, they will get shameless over time. What I think both of us are suggesting is that go be shameless from day one. It's fine.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
I think that would work on. I think this is awesome. We have understood how to go from idea, what are the key business opportunities, how to build an MVP, and now how to get your users, right? I think I would like to end the pod with just understanding the key, the secret success formula to getting into YC, right? So let's say I've built certain traction. Now my dream is to go to a YC. What are the key things that I should keep in mind to get selected, right?
I think that's the $1 million question. I think, every founder you talk to answers, but I think there are 3 or 4 core principles that I figured out once I entered YC. I'll talk about it. But I'll tell you, I'm not sure if a lot of people know, we applied to YC for the first time in December 2020 for the Winter 21 batch. And we didn't get selected. We are very close. We didn't get selected. I'll tell you also why we didn't select and how we ended up getting selected just the immediate next batch. So I was in YC Summer 21 batch, which was between B to August of 2021, summer of 2021. But our ideal, first experience YC was we had applied sometime in November, actually got an interview slot, gave the interview and get through, and that was heartbreaking for us. And the YC partners were somehow very kind. They, they were in touch with us on email, and they told us that Roshan, just show us some very basic traction, which we did, and then we applied to YC again. And we unfortunately got into YC. And I'll tell you what, YC looks for in overall for founders coming. First, number one, I think, and I think a lot of founders talk about it, including Kshitiz, is the founders themselves, right? How strong are the founders? And as we call it, is a founder market fit. So I'll give you a glimpse of it. So my current co-founder, whom I've been with Media AI now at the previous company globally, we have been the best of friends for the last 16, 17 years now, met in undergrad, studied in the same hostel, studied engineering together. So I think what YC is very, very interested is the founder that you're building it in. Are you guys in it for the long term? Come what may, right? There can be good times, there can bad times, but are you guys together and will you take this journey, right? So What why should deep dive is how do you know him? Let's say Kshitiz, you and I are founders. So maybe why should check, have you met in college or have you met in some common workplace? And this is not just a random encounter of applying together. So the backstory is important. How do you guys know each other? And do you also have complementary skills? I was in this case very fortunate. I have the skills that are mostly around business and management side, while my co-founder has skills more on the technical side. But the added advantage for both of us was both of us come from a computer science background, right? So at least I understand coding or technology at a high level, even though I don't do it hands-on every day. I do it if I require. So the founders, I probably would have the highest weightage, I think, in terms of an YC application, the YC backstory. And what makes you unique to solve this problem? I think in this case, is the founder market fit. Do you have any personal or professional experience of building something in this sector? Any previous domain knowledge, which kind of differentiates you from any other founder that is applying to YC? So in our case, when I applied for Go Billion for YC South building on batch, we're building e-commerce in India. So we were very clear. We face this problem ourselves. We come from small towns, which is very, very understaffed, so in terms of tech products or e-commerce in general. And I was consulting for the longest time to Deloitte. So I was a consultant and advised the largest e-commerce companies globally. So I could understand what e-commerce is from a functional or business lens. And my co-founder understood what technologies used to work in SAP Labs and a bunch of other AI companies back in the day. So I think that partnership was very strong. We understood the market, we understood the target customer, we understood how we can build this out. So that's the first thing, founder market fit of the founding tool. Second, I think is the target addressable market, right? As you call it, STAM. How big is the market, right? And typically, I think what YC looks for is any market that is $1 billion plus in terms of addressable opportunity. And it's very important. While a legitimate business can be built on any segment, but if you're only focusing on YC, look at market segments which have a total addressable market of $1 billion. There can be competition there, obviously. If it's a large enough market pie, there'll be a lot of competition, but just kind of focus on that. And third is traction, and which I was giving the example of when I was applying the first time, which I didn't get to because of the traction issue. Because the first two boxes are already checked, right? That's why YC was still in touch with me on email. But the last box of traction was something that I got done the first time, which we did the next time and we got it. So we have to show some early traction. It doesn't have to be like 100% month-on-month growth, but just if you can show consistent week-on-week or month-on-month growth, it can be 5%, 10% month-on-month, week-on-week growth. I think the 10% is the YC standard, like, is what YC expects. But if you can show some traction, so in YC's perspective, that means that people are using this product, founders are iterating, and they are growing into a scalable business. Fourth, I think probably a lot of YC folks don't talk about openly, but this is something I realized later on. There is something called as YC Startup School, and this is very important for first-time founders who might be watching this podcast. I had signed up for the YC Startup School, and I also give a lot of credit to getting through YC to that program as well. Any person can go to YC Startup School, do the registration, or get onboarded, and just keep giving weekly milestones of what you're building. And YC actually puts a lot of weight for that. So when I actually got in, I realized in the YC course that is very important. It increases the chances substantially of getting to YC if you can show regular improvements on the startup school before you even make the formal application. So I think that's the 3-4 things that a founder can do to apply and maximize the chances there.
Yeah, I think this is the $1 million question that you've answered really well with proper frameworks and proper examples, right? So I think extremely helpful podcast, right, for our viewers. So thanks a lot, Roshan.
Absolutely.
That's the pod. I loved it.
Thank you so much.
Awesome, Roshan. Awesome. Cool. Stop procrastinating.
Start today.